Well, I guess it's for me to say welcome, everybody. I'm glad you made it here. We've been having all kinds of problems technically today. At least I have been. I don't know, maybe just me. But just as an aside, I was on a big show today that we had Elon Musk and Alex Jones all on the same program, and I was kind of in the middle of that. So I didn't think much about it, except that, well, we probably have a good exposure. And when I got off, I found out that our two main websites were down. Apparently, the traffic was so great that it just broke the systems. At least that's what I hope it's the problem. I hope we weren't sabotaged. But anyway, so things have been very exciting today. Now, I wish we had that kind of turnout for this program. Health matters are somehow not as exciting anymore as they used to be, because we've been so bombarded with all the news about, we're being killed, we're being made ill, they're trying to transform us into robots and all these things, which are so true, actually, but we get sort of burned out on it. And it's kind of hard to get people to listen anymore, because they think, I've heard all that, there's nothing we can do about it, I don't want to hear about it anymore. So that's the problem we have, but we can do something about it. And I'm glad that we've got some people like Stanford Graham with us, because he's devoted a major part of his adult life, as I've been told. You do have an adult life, I presume. But his career, he's basically into a lot of different things. He's a legal eagle sort of guy. He's in all kinds of legal proceedings. He's fighting for freedom of speech and freedom of medicine and all those things. But he also is quite a scholar when it comes to medical matters, especially when it comes to the circulatory system, cardiovascular system. And I can talk in generalities about a lot of things in that category. But when it comes down to the nitty gritties, we need somebody like Stanford to keep us on track and make sure we're not interpreting the big picture incorrectly. So I'm glad to turn this over to Stanford in just a minute, but I'll tell you what I think we're going to do and what I hope we will cover. The issue of health is sort of a general thing, and nobody's interested in health unless you can specify what system, because we've all got our little aches and pains. Even the young folks have their aches and pains. And if you're talking about their ache or their pain, they're interested. Otherwise, that's leave me alone. Well, it turns out that a lot of these little aches and pains and these diseases and special conditions are all, they have a common connection, and the vascular system is it. There may be the central nervous system too, and like the vagus nerve and things like that. But certainly the cardiovascular system is the common denominator to every organ in our body, every function in our body, because it supplies the nutrients and the oxygen that the cells need, and it provides the evacuation, a cleanup mechanism for the toxins and the waste products that the cells are trying to get rid of. And you interfere with that mess, brother, you're in trouble, because everything stops working. It doesn't make any difference whether it's your brain, your kidney, or your muscles, or whatever. So we don't get too excited, it seems like, about talking about the cardiovascular system unless we think we've got a heart problem, or if we get old, really old like I am, you think, well, how's my heart doing? You start thinking about those things. But our topic today, as I understand it, Stanford, is going to be more in terms of the general effect that a good cardiovascular system has on overall health in many, many different ways. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, in fact, let's get a little bit, we'll be pretty specific in this conversation, Jed. Rather than maintain some generalities, we're going to get some specificity in talking about our cardiovascular system in ways perhaps that people haven't heard before. So, okay, and your opening comments are right on the money. The fact that you say, one of the interesting characteristics that our blood has is that it connects all of our organs. It's a fascinating observation. It has the beauty of being true. But we'll talk a little bit about blood tonight as a connective tissue, a liquid connective tissue. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So will this be of interest on any, because, well, of course, everybody's worried about the COVID-related symptoms or whatever that thing is called. We call it COVID, whether it was a germ or a virus, or it's a reaction to radioactivity, or whatever it is. It makes a lot of people pretty sick. and we've all been through that, or most of us. And so I presume that what we're going to be talking about tonight touches on that element as well. Is that correct?
It certainly will, simply because, as you know, that the target of the pathogens that are being created are they're built to attack our cardiovascular system. They're really targeted to attack very specifically the vascularity of the human body. So we'll touch on that as well. It won't be anything like a coronavirus centric conversation, but
No.
the point is that you're alive and kicking on a big show today, swinging some big weights around with guys like Alex and Elon. 40 years their senior, 30, 40 years their senior, maybe 50 with Musk. You've done something right.
Yeah, they're like my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's going to be, but I'll say this: freedom of speech is valuable if you're alive.
Yeah.
Personal sovereignty is valuable provided that we're alive. If you don't have your health, you don't have much. And so,
well, I don't want to slow this down anymore. I'm going to turn it over to you in a second, but I want to just share with the audience an interesting experience that I've had in my life. Back when I wrote the book World Without Cancer, the story of vitamin B17, I think that was published in 1974. I was advised by some very close friends and people who I highly respected in terms of their judgment and their experience, doctors and authors and philosophers and so forth, and political leaders and so forth. And they advised me to leave the second part of my book off. Now, those who've read it realize that it's in two parts. The first part has to do with the science of cancer therapy, and the second part has to do with the politics of cancer therapy. And the advice was, well, Ed, why don't we just leave that politics out, because that gets pretty controversial and you'll turn people off with it. They don't care about that. What they want to know is just how do they just avoid cancer? And you're going to lose your audience. You're not going to make many sales. People are not going to read your book because of that. And they almost had me convinced. I thought, they might be right. But I thought it was important because I thought, the trouble is when you go to talk to somebody about this, the cancer therapy that really works, and it's so simple and so inexpensive, and yet it works, and the other stuff is very expensive and it doesn't work very well at all, people will say, well, if this is true, how come my doctor doesn't know it? And they wouldn't believe the truth even if it's right in front of them, unless they understood that there was something psychological in the air preventing people from seeing and recognizing the truth. So I left it in, and it turns out that was very good, because there were other books out there on the subject of cancer therapy, and particularly the Laetrile story, and they all came and went and disappeared, whereas mine continues to be popular even today. So unless people understand the political side of these health problems we have, they're just incapable of really understanding how come their doctor either doesn't know about it or knows the opposite or knows something that's not true about it. So with that, I'll just turn it loose and say that we're not afraid of controversy. Wherever the truth leads us, let's go and get ready.
Let's make some dust.
Yeah.
You want to get us going on the slide number 2?
Okay, so it's all yours, Stanford.
Yes, we'll drive it from here. The point about health and politics is on point. Everybody knows over the last 3 years that they've been in the same fighting cage, and we've seen that the political institutions have driven the dialogue on life-taking measures rather than life-preserving measures. So, Gabe, can you get us rolling with the slide deck? Thanks. So we're going to talk about vascular health. That's the topic, is vascular health. So here's a 2021 publication. I thought I'd start with this because it just squares up the issue very clearly. And these were findings actually prior to the whole coronavirus 2 charade. So here's the a very well respected research journal, Circulation, and one of the most poignant statements in the study. that coronary artery disease is the leading cause of death in women in the Western world. Full stop. So those who are listening, just sit with that for a minute and think about that coronary artery disease is the leading cause of women, or the leading cause of death of women. This is in the Western world, which we're supposed to be more advanced medicinally. Let's go to the next slide, Gabe. Same publication. Endothelial dysfunction in a setting of normal coronary arteries is a sign of future development of atherosclerosis. Think about this. Now, in this study, it was a large female study. Women came in who had a diagnosis after an angiogram that their vascularity, their health vascularity was fine. That was the conclusion, that the test they had on their vascular system was positive, that is, no negative effects. The conclusion of the study that women that had been adjudicated as vascularly healthy within 10 years would develop atherosclerosis. And this was before any gene injection therapy had come to town. Next slide, Gabe. So that's quite auspicious, right? So here's an interesting image. An open blood vessel. Basically, this would be a capillary. If you take a look at the red blood cell sizes, you can see on the very interior of this blood vessel, you can see a pink line. And that pink line is a representation of endothelial cells. We just read about those. Endothelial cells are this internal lining of all the vascularity in the human body, actually in all mammals. Now, when the article states that coronary artery disease is the leading cause of death in women, that happens as a consequence of the arteries becoming stiff and inflexible. That is, not being able to react, G. Edward, to the bolus of blood that comes pumping out of the heart. It doesn't come out in a stream, it comes out in a ball. And our arteries and our vascular system has to respond to that pressure. And if our vascularity is stiff, then over time we're going to get some ruptures. One of the reasons that our veins, or rather our arteries, become stiff is because the interior of this blood vessels become sticky. These endothelial cells that are this interior lining are supposed to act like a Teflon coating. They're supposed to shed lipids. They're supposed to prevent the adhesion of things like platelets and other types of metabolic residue that's floating around in the blood. When those endothelial cells become damaged, when they become roughed up by wear and tear, then they begin to actually aggregate material like like a cast iron pan instead of a really nice Teflon pan. They start to aggregate material rather than shed material. So this leads to inflexible vascularity and obviously to occlusions where blood can't pass easily. Next slide, Gabe. So this is obviously something we want to avoid. Here's a list, just as a general list, G. Edward, of heart conditions, heart dysfunctions, together with vascular dysfunctions, just a few of them that can result when we don't take care of our vascular system and the health of our blood. Next slide, Gabe. So here's a fun question, everybody. What are blood vessels? If we're really interested in maintaining the health of our blood vessels, let's start with a question about and a conversation about what are they? Well, I don't know if anybody's thought about this before, but the idea that your blood vessels are active organs may be something new to you. It may be a new description of your cardiovascular system that you haven't heard before. They're actually an organ of the body. And one of their main jobs is to maintain the homeostasis of the body as an entire system, not just the cardiovascular system, but as you can see in this picture, you can see these the vascularity of the two kidneys here. You can see how profuse the microvascular system is in organs that actually maintain the connective tissue of organs, whether that's the kidney or the liver or any other organ. So what they're going to try to control for, the blood vessels, G. Edward, are controlling for environmental factors to maintain this homeostasis, this balance that must exist from the internal pressure inside the blood vessel and the external pressure of the blood vessel. So a number of things that the vascular system is going to control for is the blood flow. Blood flow means that refers to blood that's actually coursing through the arteries and the veins, as well as the blood flow that's moving out of the arteries through the walls of the vessels and into the interstitial tissue. And those would principally be the red blood cells. So they're controlling for blood flow, for blood pressure. They're controlling for optimal oxygen levels, for blood viscosity, which happens to be the thickness of your blood. The more viscous your blood is, and of course, the thicker it is, and the more slowly it runs. So of course, your blood vessels are going to actually control for speed as well. Your blood needs to travel at an optimum speed in order to maintain, to reduce pressure, the external pressure on the blood vessels and arteries themselves, as well as to create shear forces inside the blood vessels for a number of reasons. Next slide, Gabe, please. So we mentioned endothelial cells. They were referred to in the first study we referred to. Endothelial cells, like I've said, you can see in the upper right corner, the inset picture there, the very interior lining of that blood vessel, that's the composition of the endothelial cells. And as you get down to this microvascularity, and you see in this hand here the fineness of the microvascularity we have throughout our bodies, that these endothelial cells are the finest, the smallest the smallest part of the vascular system that we have. In fact, they're so small in terms of diameter, G. Edward, that the red blood cells have to deform themselves, actually have to fold and deform themselves actually to get into these very small microcapillaries. And as it turns out, these microcapillaries that constitute the lion's share of our vascular system are made of only one type of cell, and that's these endothelial cells. Maintaining the health of that endothelial cell, G. Edward, is really what's going to keep us from contracting a cardiovascular disease. You can see these gray images here. This microscopy, the image on the right is an interior wall of a microcapillary, and you can just make out kind of a waffle-looking pattern of that vessel. It almost looks like a very fine lace. Well, those are the outlines of the endothelial cells in a microcapillary. The image on the left is you're looking straight down at a microcapillary where you can see the nucleus of the endothelial cell, and that very small gray outline is the endothelial cell wall inside the capillary. Next slide, Gabe. So another reason that we want to maintain the health of the endothelial cells, this interior lining of our blood vessels, this is a fact, Jed, that most people don't know, that the blood-brain, we have conversations about the importance of the blood-brain barrier, that we have a part of our circulatory system that actually feeds the brain is supposed to protect the brain from toxins that are in the blood that would otherwise get into the brain and cause neurodegenerative damage. Here's another interesting point, that blood-brain barrier, G. Edward, is made up of only one kind of cell. It's made up of endothelial cells. So it's a one-cell thick microcapillary. And these endothelial cells have these very tight junctions. They're a specific type of endothelial cell in the blood-brain barrier to maintain very tight junctions to prevent viruses and bacteria and other kinds of toxins from actually getting into the brain tissue. I find this, the astrocytes, these silver-looking cells, these astrocytes actually support the biochemistry of the endothelial cells. These tannish-looking cells called pericytes, Pericyto, pericytes, they're built to actually maintain the integrity of the endothelial, to help maintain the integrity of the endothelial cell wall. And this structure, relative to endothelial cells and microcapillary, exists only in the brain. And in particular, let me correct that. In the brain, then, as you mentioned at the top of the show, Jed, we're in the central, you mentioned the central nervous system. The blood-brain barrier circulatory system is integrated into the central nervous system as well. So it has this very specific instruction or construction of these, the microcapillaries that feed the brain tissue, as well as the tissue of the central nervous system, with these very delicate endothelial cells that are one cell thick. So again, to maintaining the health of those particular types of cells, critical to mental health. So we're talking about all the different types of neurodegenerative diseases, preventing them, whether it's the Parkinson's diseases or Alzheimer's diseases, other kinds of neurodegenerative diseases. There are a number of different conditions, inflammatory conditions, where if this blood-brain barrier is breached, we've actually found, as a result of G. Edward, the coronavirus, there were a few axes that we found as a consequence of the gene therapy injections by which toxins can break into the brain through the blood-brain barrier. One was found from the bone marrow. There's a axis from the bone marrow to the blood-brain barrier that we didn't know of before the gene therapy injections. So again, maintaining the integrity and health of the endothelial cells becomes extraordinarily important for neural health. Next slide, Gabe, please. This is another shot of the same, an illustration of the endothelial cells in the brain, and the blood-brain barrier construction, the blood feed for that, for the brain. I wanted to show this, Jed, because you can see the connective tissue here, these astrocytes, imperiocytes, that are built to maintain the integrity of the capillaries between one another. But you can also, the notes I've made to the left here is that the health of these endothelial cells is directly connected to the health of the blood-brain barrier itself, as well as the central nervous system. Next slide, Gabe. All right. Well, so here's our transition slide. So we've talked a little bit about
excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did I interrupt on something here before we leave the vessels themselves?
Yeah.
There was an interesting question that's been introduced publicly lately that I learned some years ago from an inventor friend of mine, Bob James. He was an inventor who did a lot of amazing things. He invented a way for the oil companies to pump oil through their miles and miles of pipelines at much less pressure than previously by reducing or almost eliminating the friction between the oil and the walls of the oil pipes. And he did this by putting polarity on the oil and an opposite polarity on the pipe. And or I should say similar polarity. Since similar polarities repel each other, it was magnetically repelled, and the friction was greatly reduced. He says he found out that the vascular system works in a very similar way, that there's no way that the heart can generate enough pressure to drive the blood through all the thousands of miles of tiny little vessels, and that the blood vessels themselves were working to move the blood through, just like I moved oil through my pipelines. They use other means to move the fluid other than the pressure from the heart. And I learned that a long time from him. But recently I've been reading more and more about that in the common literature. What's your feeling about it? Is that accurate, what I just said? You think?
Yes, that we'll see some images coming up here that I mentioned before, that the blood vessels are built to control their both external and internal environment. And so they're built to control for temperature, because blood temperature, our cardiovascular system is a system that maintains the fragile temperature of the body within a very fine gradient. They actually, as well, our blood vessels maintain the temperature of the blood as it travels through our organs. The liver tissue is different than kidney tissue. The kidney tissue is different than the pancreas tissue. The pancreas tissue is different than the lung or heart tissue. All those tissues have different densities, and they operate optimally at different blood temperatures that are very slight. But as it happens, if our blood temperature is too cold in an organ, it sets up the environment that is where the organ is hypoactive. That is, it is underactive. The blood is running cold. The organ is underperforming. That sets up an environment for cancer instigation, cancer cell triggering. That does not happen where the blood runs hot, where the temperature is a little hotter than it ought to be, and where the activity of the tissue in the organ is hyperactive as opposed to hypoactive or cold. So what's interesting, it's a fascinating conversation that you raised, because blood temperature is critically important to optimal performance and function of every different organ, and they all operate at just a very slight gradient, different from each other because of the different tissue they have. And our cardiovascular system is that intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
those endothelial cells have a massive, that's one of their, some of the beauty of what they do relative to this blood, this connective, this fluid connective tissue that's running through them, is that they maintain its fluidity. They actually persuade the endothelial cells persuade the plasma to stay liquid, because our blood is about 87, 90% plasma, which is really a high concentration of water. And then we have red blood cells and white blood cells and platelets running around in that fluid, along with some other stuff. But so maintaining temperature of the blood is absolutely critical, because if the blood cools off, as your buddy would experience in his oil pipelines, if the oil cools, it slows. That happens in our engines too. I mean, when the engine oil becomes too dirty, it slows down, which can threaten the life of your engine, right? Same thing with our blood, where the blood, where its viscosity increases and its speed slows down because it becomes sludgier and sludgier, moves slower and slower. This affects the temperature of the blood because it's traveling slowly. So the blood temperature decreases, the speed of the blood decreases, the way that the blood communicates with the endothelial cells decreases, oxygen exchange decreases, our respiration, we get oxygen into the red blood cells by an exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Well, there's a third molecule we learned in 2015. There's the third molecule necessary to facilitate the oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange, and it's nitric oxide.
Well,
And
all of this provides,
is produced by the endothelial cells.
Yeah, all of this provides rationale for the success of some of the old therapies for not just cancer, but all kinds of ailments called hyperthermia.
Yeah.
Hypothermia. Just warm up the patient, get them hot and sweating, and that increases the blood temperature and increases the oxygenation of the cells, moves the blood faster, and so forth. And now in the modern world, we have these saunas, the infrared saunas that do pretty much the same thing, and we get these amazing stories. Oh my gosh, my cancer is reduced.
Hey,
it's gone. What happened? There's no explanation for that. Well, there is a very good explanation for that. So thank you.
We just don't run around as much as we used to. We don't have to chase dinner around much anymore. And work our bodies into a sweat. Gabe, let's go back to those slides. We can take a look at some very interesting images. So here's the next question. What is blood? And of course, this is directly related to what is a blood vessel, because it's not just the thing that carries the blood. It's so much more than that. But now let's get to this question. What is blood? Well, blood is a fluid connective tissue. And you said this actually right at the top of the show, that it functions that way. Blood functions that way because it connects all of our organs. It's one of the way all of our organs speak with each other. They communicate with each other because blood carries intelligence. And so as well as taking data, taking intelligence, information into the body, whether it's nutrition or hydration, whatever it is, and then also transporting waste out of the body as well. Next slide, Gabe. But I love thinking about blood as connective tissue. I think it's fascinating to think of it that way. So here we have this was actually a video. I don't know, Gabe, can you put your cursor over that, see if we can actually make it run? What the video illustrated, Jed, or maybe not, what it demonstrated, it as blood moves through this system. This was a live video of blood moving through arteries and vessels, that when the blood pumps, when it acts, when the blood comes out of the heart, that the color of the blood vessels turns red, which indicates faster speed, higher temperature, higher oxygen levels, and lower viscosity. And then between the time that the blood comes moving through the system, when the heart pumps, when the heart relaxes and fills up again before it pumps, all this vascularity turns blue, which indicates that there's blood coming through there that is not as well oxygenated, that's moving slower, and its viscosity increases. This was a patient whose health had been compromised, because our oxygen levels in our blood should be maintained between heartbeats. Gabe, let's go to the next slide. This is informative. So again, on blood health. So what this illustration here is this is a computerized image. These are computerized images of actual images of blood vessels where we have a small abdominal aortic aneurysm. You see this bulb that's protruding from these blood vessels. That's the aneurysm. Now, as you see on the top level, the peak systole point, this is when the heart is pumping the blood through the body. You can see the reds, which indicates faster flow. So as you can see the speed of the blood is fast, and then as it approaches this aneurysm, it slows down and begins to circulate and cools way down and starts moving much slower. Finally finds its way out of there and moves and speeds up again. So a couple of points here. One is that when our blood travels slow, the oxygen level is naturally lower. And this happens really on a systemic level. When we can keep the lining of our blood vessels clean, when we can enjoy what is called a laminar flow, which is like water that you'd put through a really clean tube, a really clean irrigation pipe, or a really clean hose, where you have a laminar flow that's fast, straightforward, and swift, rather than having it travel like water in a tumbling stream. If you have platelets and lipids and the cholesterol attached to the sides of the interior of your blood vessels, that's going to create not just slow down the blood, but it creates all kinds of eddies and weird distortions in the blood flow itself that make it much less efficient in being able to transfer the data that it has outside the vascular wall. Let's go to the next slide, Gabe. Okay, so this is one of my favorite shots, Jedward, because here we have actual images and then those images that are sharpened with what's called numerical simulation. And what this shows is the velocity of the blood actually traveling through blood vessels, right? So again, the color scheme here is the red indicates the fastest moving blood, or blood moving at its in this blood vessel where the blood is moving fastest. And then as it turns yellow and green and blue, that's slower and slower. So one of the things that's very interesting is that our vascular system does not involve a lot of straightaways. There's a lot of bifurcations, a lot of forks in the vascularity and rejoining, and there's all kinds of, you have a very complex system. So the idea of moving blood through that very complex system at the highest speeds possible, it's really necessary to maintain a very clean interior of the tube. It's all like your plumbing at home, once you start clogging up your plumbing, you got yourself some problems. But I think these images are fascinating because they show the different speeds at which blood travels through a single vein. And again, part of this obviously is by design, because blood needs to maintain it. Our blood system, our vascular system, is used to maintain the temperature of the body. So it needs to be able to accept heat and dispel heat, to heat up and cool off. So I just find it very fascinating how the cardiovascular system is engineered, with this collaboration between the blood, this liquid connective tissue, and these endothelial cells, which are the interior lining of all of our blood vessels, and how they communicate with each other and facilitate the best in each other to help the human out in terms of that human's health, because this is where so much dysfunction starts, is in the cardiovascular system, because it touches every single organ.
Stanford, what do those numbers on the left mean? Are those temperatures? Is that degrees, 120 degrees, 90 degrees, and so forth?
Okay, that actually, those are angles. So the
Angle.
120, 90, and 25 are angles, very specific angles of the blood vessels that they're measuring. On the right side, you see these, at the top, you see this speed of 334, 187, 63. That's the speed of the blood based on the millimeters per fractions of seconds, right? So here's the speed of the blood. So you can see that when the blood is, that red color is where the blood is traveling fastest. And then you can see what happens with the speed of the blood when there's a curve in the blood vessel. or down on the third rung where there's a bifurcation where it actually forks. You know, there's some resistance there, obviously, and so you get the blood that's slowing down and cooling off.
I
So,
see. I got it.
so it's a really interesting representation of the complexity of the blood itself and the way that it responds to and reacts with the blood vessels based on the complex forms of the blood vessels themselves. Next slide, Gabe. So you'll recognize this handsome guy. So I put this slide together so that in 2008, there was a Nobel Prize for these three doctors that figured out that this nitric oxide stuff was this X factor molecule. They actually called it an X factor, did not know what this molecule was that was helping the blood vessels maintain their flexibility. So that when the blood came charging out of the heart, that they would flex. These our arteries are muscular; they'll flex, and as you've talked about with your buddy with his oil pipe lines, the blood vessels dilate and then they'll contract, and so they'll actually move that blood along by expansion and contraction. Because you're right, the heart can in no way drive blood, 80,000 miles through, that much terrain, that much altitude, ascents and descents and curves, all kinds of crazy things. And to think that we can get our blood from our heart all the way down to our toes and back up is pretty phenomenal. And our head, maintaining the temperature of our body, moving data around efficiently and communicating, oxygen to cells, nutrition to cells. So so that discovery in 2008 with nitric oxide being made by these endothelial cells, quite fascinating. They figured out, well, that's the molecule that actually helps maintain the health and integrity of the endothelial cell. So that means the health and integrity of the blood-brain barrier, the health and integrity of the central nervous system blood supply, the health and integrity of the cardiovascular system, so that we can avoid this terrible fact, which the coronary artery disease is the #1 killer of women in the Western world. That would not be the case if their arteries were healthy. It would not be the case if their blood was healthy. It would not be the case. So John Hewlett works. He figures out some things, as you know. You were taking Cardio Miracle, I think, before it had a name or a flavor, So
Right.
But what John figured out is that he could put together the fuel for the endothelial cells, so they would so that the body would produce this nitric oxide molecule, facilitate respiration, optimize oxygen concentration in the red blood cells, which means you're also optimizing the viscosity of the blood, which means you're also optimizing the speed of the blood as it travels through the vascular system. And then, so you're also maintaining optimal temperature in the body, optimal temperature in the organs. And so you maintaining this cardiovascular system, maintaining the homeostasis of the body. So the magic that John figured out was, not that he figured it out, that Judy Mikovits, your good friend, who says John got a God download, that this Cardio Miracle stuff, that this list of ingredients that John put together was a God download. But he figured out how to put together the fuel, the very specific singular fuel that endothelial cells need to make nitric oxide, as well as anti-inflammatory foods to lower the inflammatory effects of nitric oxide production. Because that's one of the ironies of biology, is that as our bodies absolutely need nitric oxide produced, that's actually an inflammatory event. And so John's figuring out that if you introduce anti-inflammatory foods into the system together with the fuel needed to create nitric oxide, then you can create the benefit of nitric oxide proliferation and reduce the inflammatory effects of doing that. That's simultaneously, which had never been seen before. And he did it without a stethoscope. So it's like you writing the last chapter of your book about, hey, there's a couple of different, maybe a few different ways we can address cancer that aren't as lethal as the medicine men would have us believe.
Fascinating story. Yeah. So,
Gabe, take us to that next slide. I think we're done on the visuals nearly. I wanted to provide, so we talked about some of the problems, like let's identify the problem right up front, and let's get familiar with the system that can either function as a way of creating that problem or resolving or avoiding that problem. This was a diagram from a study in a dental magazine, because now there are clinical studies that tie oral health, the health of the mouth, directly to cardiovascular disease. So if we don't maintain a healthy oral cavity, that is, if we're eating highly processed foods, if we're consuming too much sugar, if we don't maintain proper oral hygiene, we have the mouth, the chemistry that goes on in the mouth produces inflammatory molecules that actually are the cause of cardiovascular diseases. So it can start right here. The inflammatory molecules that CardioMiracle addresses can actually start in the mouth with a poor diet and poor oral hygiene, which sounds crazy. Who would have thought that, not brushing not keeping your mouth, a really good hygiene protocol going would actually have an impact on the health of your heart. But they're not too far apart. It's connected through the neck. So, but what this diagram shows is that if we'll reduce our sugar intake, along with reducing high processed food intake, and increase our consumption of what are called nitrate-rich foods. And there's a list of them here: beetroot and carrot and spinach and broccoli and cherries and strawberries. All of those things are in CardioMiracle. John had figured out somehow that it was a smart idea to put nitrate-rich foods into this combination of amino acids to promote a healthy oral biome, a healthy biome in your mouth. As it turns out, nitrate-rich foods reduce the proliferation of dangerous bacteria and increase the participation of good bacteria. Who would have thought? So it's a very interesting combination of facts. So you can actually eat really well when you take this CardioMiracle product, because it has a lot of nitrate-rich foods in it, which is another, you can actually begin to form nitric oxide actually in your mouth with CardioMiracle, not just with the endothelial produced nitric oxide, which is driven by the L-arginine and L-citrulline amino acids. Next slide, please, Gabe. And so here's an interesting study just on that last point I made. You see the title here, the Oral Microbiome Brain Axis. Think about that. The oral microbiome brain axis and neuropsychiatric disorders. I just mentioned that keeping a healthy oral biome is necessary to maintain a healthy heart. this study is saying from 2022, this study says that keeping a healthy oral biome, eating well, like we just talked about, moving the body, exercise is good, eating nitrate-rich foods actually increases your neural health. Is the quote here: oral health, gum disease, and periodontitis have been found to play a direct role in the development and progression of non-communicable diseases such as cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, a number of cancers, including esophageal cancer and colorectal cancer. So, just another interesting fact that you and I have never talked about as it relates to nitric oxide and cardiovascular health. To me, this is very fascinating to think that it demonstrates that in fact, blood is a liquid connective tissue, that our vascular system is an organ. It connects all of our organs. And so maintaining really good oral health is going to affect the health of our brain. And as it says here, this particular study found that oral health and gum disease and periodontitis play a direct role in the development and progression of non-communicable diseases, that is, inflammatory diseases. So, next slide, Gabe.
I have an observation on that.
Edward, what do you
I
think
have a quick observation on that.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've become really more acquainted with the importance of oral health, as you're talking about. When I was a young boy, I had very bad oral hygiene, and all that. I won't go into it, but I had a lot of cavities in my teeth as a young kid. So naturally, as I grew older, that didn't get any better. So I always had to, when I finally realized how important that was, I had to pay a lot of attention to maintaining my teeth. And I noticed there were two kinds of dentists out there. And the kind of dentist I was used to in the early part of my life were the ones that just wanted to drill those cavities out and replace them with something. And then I discovered as time went by, there's another type of dentist, and he starts asking me questions about my diet and what do I eat, and sort of, why are you asking me this? Well, what you eat and in your mouth, it affects your health. And oh, really, does it? And so I decided there were two kinds of dentists, and I wanted to go to the dentist that was asking me about my nutrition as well as how many cavities I had in my mouth. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense. If we, one of the things that our good common friend David Martin says on the regular is, if we'd slow down to the speed of consciousness, slow down and think.
Some of us, that's pretty slow.
Yeah, pretty slow sometimes.
Yeah.
But they are connected. So this last slide, I think we have. What I wanted to do is just trot out again. We talked about some issues, some challenges, and I don't like to address challenges if we don't have solutions. So Gabe, would you put up that last slide here so that we can, again, we can be clear on some simple steps that we can take to actually dramatically improve our health. So I can summarize it, Gabe, as you're putting that up, the penultimate slide. One is cut back on the sugar, folks, in all of its forms. That's like fructose and glucose, cut back on it. More nitrate-rich foods, and these are dark green vegetables, dark red vegetables. Cut back on highly processed foods. When I was raising my kids, Edward, we had two types of food in the house. Well, one was food, which was anything that grew out of the earth or any animals that ate it. And the other was garbage, which was everything else. And so we would, it's kind of funny, we'd have friends over, and Gabe here, who's running the shows, what is my, a dear son of mine. And I can remember growing up is, hey, Dad, can I have some garbage? Would have some boxed cereal somewhere,
Yeah.
We'd have a garbage day, let's have some garbage, go down to the donut shop. But so Folks, if you lower your sugar, eat more vegetables. It's like you can hear your mother talking to you. Practice good oral hygiene, move your body, and take Cardio Miracle every day. And I promise you, you will feel better. Your body will feel better. It will respond better to everything that you do to help it. And I know, G. Edward, you've got your own experiences with that. I have mine. I've given it to my father, who's 84 years old. He had neuropathy. After 3 months, he could feel his feet just fine. He didn't get up. He doesn't get up in the night anymore because of his feet burning, and all of those issues. He's back to reading 6 hours a day. He's a voracious reader. So to see his mental clarity come back, his retention come back, has been a really a beautiful thing.
So what did he change, or how did you change his diet or activities?
Yeah, well, for him it was, and this is in part it has something to do with, we could have another conversation about blood type, because your blood type actually has something to do with the types of foods that are best for you to eat. Go figure. It's actually true. So people ought to learn. We can maybe do that, have another conversation about that. The blood type and how that indicates, as a leading indicator of what type of foods are going to work well in your body, that your body will metabolize well. So I told my dad, first of all, you got to start eating more, and you need to eat more fat, more protein and more fat, but particularly much more fat. And so animal fat, particularly. So the brain, as you know, our brain consumes about 25% of our daily caloric consumption. It's a very small percentage of our body weight, because it's about 8 to 10 pounds, but it consumes 20 to 25% of all of the caloric energy that we eat, and specifically fats. The brain eats fats very specifically. So imagine, well, in the 80s and 90s, we were, the health kick was fat-free diets, Edward. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I do. I can't help but thinking what you're saying means if somebody calls you a fathead, that's a compliment.
It is. You say thank you very much. But you can imagine one of the reasons we see an exponential rise in brain disorders and brain dysfunctions now. And isn't it interesting that in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, we were, the diets that were being promoted by, government and otherwise was low fat diets, which, by the way, had an increase of sugar, because if you take fat out of food, it tastes like garbage. It tastes lousy. So, my father started eating more fat. I actually told him one of his favorite foods growing up, Jed, was Spam. I remember him frying Spam on the regular, and we'd eat Spam and eggs.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Whole wheat mush. We'd have to grind. Would have to go down to the basement and grind, whole kernel of wheat. So we'd come up and cook it and have whole wheat mush in the morning with Spam and eggs. And but yeah, I told my dad, hey, time to get more calories, but specifically at least 50% of his calories through fat, and his mental clarity is better.
Well, we're reaching the end of our time period here. What's the takeaway from all this? What do people say? Gee, I learned this and something I can do to change. What is that? How do you focus on that?
Well, just to restate, because these are very simple steps. One is oral hygiene. Take time. Don't use mouthwash, because that destroys the good biome, the good bacteria in your mouth. Don't use mouthwash. It's poison. It's poison to your body, so don't use it. You can use baking soda and brush your teeth very effectively. You can clean your teeth with baking soda very effectively. A lot of the toothpaste that we use now are not healthy products. So, but
most of them are not, I would say.
Most of them are not. There are some that are very good.
Yeah.
So good oral hygiene, and then be particular about what you put in your mouth. Be particular about it. Fresh, fruits and vegetables are good, particularly what we talked about, rich, nitrate-rich foods, which are dark green, the dark reds, the purples. That means berries, cherries, raspberries, blueberries. Those kinds of things are nitrate-rich. Carrots, beets, those kinds of things. Again, nitrate-rich. They create, when we chew them, the chemistry in our mouth creates very good bacteria and begins to puts nitrate in our blood system, which is then metabolized as nitrate, which then becomes nitric acid. Or I'm sorry, nitric oxide. So there are two different ways that we can increase the nitric oxide in our body, and it's that point when I say, well, so cut the sugar down, because that's crack. It's addictive. There are great studies out of the University of California, San Francisco, where one particular scientist there has demonstrated that sugar is really the cocaine. It is the gateway drug, because it promotes addiction in the brain. It teaches the brain to seek pleasure rather than joy. And it's easy, and we can have pleasure as humans by ourselves, but we cannot have joy by ourselves. We need other humans to experience joy. And so there's a really good mental benefit of cutting sugar out, because then it decreases the addiction behavior that sugar creates in the mind.
I'm very well acquainted with that syndrome. I've been fighting
Well,
it for most of my life. Yes.
So I'd say the last thing I'd say is take Cardio Miracle a few times a day, and I think we have an offer here, folks. So if
Well,
you
yeah, this is the whole point of this, isn't it? Because I wouldn't be here, and I don't think you would be here, unless John and I had hooked up together some years ago, and he persuaded me to try this thing called Cardio Miracle. And so, without knowing any of the things that you're talking about today, I said, okay, we'll give it a try. I didn't expect anything of it. And lo and behold, it just brought about a lot of very fundamental changes. And my blood pressure went down, and my stamina went up, my attitude improved, even the gum recesses in my mouth began to heal up. Surprisingly, my hygienist at the dentist, she said, what are you doing? And so forth. All of these things happened. So all of a sudden I became more interested now in learning the details. Before that, okay, try it on me. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I'm here to tell you, there's something about this. This is truth. This must be based on scientific truth, because it works. So I'm just curious. I think a lot of people are listening and they're waiting. Well, all right, so what do I do? I can go out and get all these green vegetables, but I probably won't. Or if I do, I'll get the wrong ones and so forth. And that's how I felt. If I didn't have my good wife to take care of my diet, I would never do it correctly. But I could take this little cardio miracle thing, dump it in a glass, and you're right, it didn't have the flavor when I started it. Now it's even good tasting, but then it was blah. Well, okay, I got to do it. But it was okay, because I knew that if I took that little glass of stuff, I was getting all these food elements. And if you would address that for a moment, I think people need to know, what can they do about this?
Sure. Well, there is a very good solution for this, because there are over 4 dozen anti-inflammatory fruits, vegetables, botanicals, herbs in Cardio Miracle. So you really can't eat well. You can eat well with Cardio Miracle. So and everything you just described, we could say that right at the front. Here's all the benefits that G. Edward got out of taking Cardio Miracle. And then we could spend the last hour saying, and here's why. Because here's what happened with his blood. Here's what happened with the speed of the blood, the oxygen level in his blood, the viscosity of his blood. Here's why he felt better. Here's why his body responded better. Here's why he had more energy. Here's why he was, maintaining a vitality that is uncustomary for a man your age, and an energy level, and a productivity level, and an ability to concentrate and consume and do way beyond, men that are 30 years younger than you are. 40 years
Well, you
younger
know,
than you.
that's the sales pitch, but it's more than a sales pitch. It happens to be
It's
true.
true.
That's
It's
amazing.
true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I
actually
didn't
true.
say
I
it, you
wouldn't I wouldn't be
did.
endorsing this product if it weren't true. And
Yeah.
so I would like to share that with other people and assure them that they don't have to really understand all of this stuff we're talking about, but be confident that it's based on science and it really works. That's about it for most people. That's how I used to operate. Does it work or not? You spare the details, you know. And but then your curiosity takes over. You say, well, I got to know more about this. Maybe these guys are fooling me. So it's
Well,
both sides are
hopefully this
necessary.
little bit of education for me, I like to visualize. If I, it helps me understand, like you say, helps me understand a little bit how my body works. And that helps me understand, that makes me a better steward of my body. If I understand how it works and I can give me some ideas of how I can engage my body, give it what it needs so it actually serves me better because it's built to serve me.
Mhm.
So Cardio Miracle is a great, do that first. Take Cardio Miracle and brush your teeth. How about that? Is that easy enough?
Well, how about brushing your teeth first?
Yeah. Great to be with you, G. Edward.
Well, it's nice to be with you, Stanford. You've always are very enlightening, and I hope our people have learned something and decided to if they have any of these problems that we're talking about, and I imagine many of them do because it's sort of common now
There's
across the
no doubt.
population. It's hard to
There's no
find
doubt.
anybody that's really in quote good health
Yes.
nowadays. So this is good information. It could be life saving for many people, and that's the
No
reason
doubt.
we're doing it. Yeah.
No doubt.
So I thank
Well,
you, and if they need to reach you to know more about the product or just ask some questions, how does that happen?
they can email us at info@cardiomiracle.com.
Okay.
Yeah, info@cardiomiracle.com. You can actually also go to the website and you can find a way to contact us there because we'll always respond. We have people there all the time. I'm sorry, it's support@cardiomiracle. There it is in the chat, support@cardiomiracle.com.
Mhm.
So, but look,
Okay.
folks, try it out because this is a no risk situation. We're happy to return your money if you're not satisfied with it. It rarely happens because people, they love it. They feel better. So I'm one of those too. I'm an elite athlete, and I tell you, I could share a few stories about that. How much it's helped me in terms of physical performance. It's great. It hasn't made my hair any darker, but I can run faster. So
Well, it hasn't made my hair any darker either, but maybe
well, David,
I'll never
it's
run as fast as you, but I can run.
it's been great to be with you. And I want to come and see you within the next month. I'd love to come see you.
Okay, well, let's work it out. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
So, to everybody else, I'll say thank you for listening and stay tuned because we'll probably be doing more of these things in the future.
You
We'll
bet we
talk
will.
about something other than the blood supply.
You
We'll talk
bet.
about some other things which are equally important and will benefit by having the confidence that this is really based on science and it's not just a lot of hype. So, with that, thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Cheers to you, Edward.